So this is ProPresenter 7. I have been waiting to say that so long. I've pre-recorded some videos and it just was such a relief to me to say out loud because I've been playing with this for a while, and Renewed Vision has done a great job getting a lot of the bugs out. Uh, the only ones I've seen are like when they changed the label of stuff. There are a few instances in some of the sub menus where they missed a couple, so they're absolutely working on that. And you'll notice right here it says one update available. That's because there was an update available, and I did not want to mess with this right before this webinar when I fired this up. So that's something that I'll do. I'm still technically on a beta version, although it's the last beta. It might be the one that's shipping, but I think that they might have made some minor fixes since this beta. So if you see something that looks a little different in the version you're using, that's why. Did I actually grab my water? No, I didn't. Oh well, that's okay. I think I'll be okay. So here we are in ProPresenter 7. First thing you need to know, they covered this in the webinar, but I know not everyone could get to it. New layout. I originally thought, why'd they move this over here, until someone explained it to me, or I figured it out. I can't remember which happened first. And that is, left-hand side is where you get the stuff. Middle, which is the biggest part, is where you interact with the stuff when you're actually presenting. And the right-hand side is where you preview the stuff. It's a little different for the audio, but I was just curious about that, because that's one of the things, is that the audio bin is up by default. So you can expand or collapse playlists and choose between the two playlists that you have there. Let's see here. I think default. Nope, I had some stuff in default. I need to get rid of that because that's a voicemail. So that's the first thing. While we're over here, let's take a look at the new preview window. And that is right here. Now you'll notice that I've got these right here, and this tells me what is up and what is not up. So right now I have my audience screen off. I can turn it on just by doing that. I've got my stage display off. I can turn it on just by doing that. The commands still work, so Command 1 and Command 2 on a Mac. I believe it's Control 1 and Control 2 on Windows, but I don't have all the keyboard shortcuts done yet. So let me show you this. This is all my notes about the keyboard shortcuts that have changed in one way or the other. So I had to go through, because when I started doing this, they didn't have that ready yet. So I don't know what they are on Windows, because I actually went through all the menus on the Mac to find the keyboard shortcuts. So next thing I want to tell you about is down here. You'll notice that I have 3 audience screens and 2 stage displays, and I'll show you how to add those, and we'll talk about some potential uses for doing just that here in just a second. So I can show what's on the audience screen. Let me just go ahead and I will do this. And you'll notice that nothing is happening here. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I hadn't changed that. Yes, or no, I hadn't. So let's clear all. Okay, now I believe that's the screen that I put that on. Yep, that is. So screen 3 I've designated as my announcement layer screen. So it's going through these right here. And screen 2 is not my announcement layer screen. So that should not be on there, but it's probably the case that I have a different look showing. So I'll have to tweak that. Let me clear that out right now. That's another thing. The clear all button is right here instead of up there. And these clear buttons, that's what they do, clear individual layers based on if the layer is active or not. So if I go into something with the slides layer, you'll notice, oh, I put something on the props layer. Forgot about that. So should I be in that situation, I can clear the props layer. And now the slides layer is up. Let's put in a background. Actually, let's do this one so that it's different. So I have a background right there. I have the slides layer right there, and nothing else is currently visible. So I'm able to change between things. It also makes it easier to remember what layer is where. So the live video layer is on the bottom. Then we've got the media layer, which is either foreground videos or background videos. We've got the slides layer. We've got the new announcements layer. We've got the props layer. We've got messages, and then we've got audio. Masks is still available, but it's just not here. And that is announcements. And music. So I can add those there. Music or sound effects. That's something that not a lot of people know, is you can change between this, whether it is a sound effect or an audio track. Audio tracks play one at a time. Sound effects can layer on top of one another. And I'd play that, but it's Striper music, and it's both copyrighted, and secondly, it is really loud, and some of y'all would not want to hear it. So Justin says, time for new keyboard skins. Yes, although there are 4 categories of keyboard shortcut changes, and so I think that primarily for most people, if you already bought the Pro 6 keyboard skin, you might be totally cool, because category 1 is, it's the exact same thing, they just call it something different. So scheduler versus calendar. Category 2 is it does 2 things now as opposed to 1, and we'll talk about that here in just a second, because there is one and only one keyboard shortcut that I've found thus far that does that. So I don't think that that's as big a deal. Category 3 is brand new functionality that wasn't there before. So that is where some people will want a new keyboard skin, but not everyone. And then the last one is the most concerning to me, but there's only 4 of them. And that is where the keyboard shortcut does something different. So just keep that in mind. Those are your categories. So the one that does both is Command 0. Command 0 will show slide changes on the stage display only, or toggle that feature back to the default it shows on both the stage display and the audience screen. But if you're in the editor, and so this is a good time to talk about this, right here, this is modal. So in ProPresenter 6, when you clicked on editor, right here was an X, but you'll notice it's now a plus sign. The X does not get you out of editor. That's what this is. And there are keyboard shortcuts, by the way. That's one of the new keyboard shortcuts. I think it's Command E takes you into editor, Command S, or Control E takes you into editor, Control S takes you into show. So that's a good quick way to toggle between the two of them. Notice that they're modal. That's the same for reflow and Bible. By the way, I know the primary audience of ProPresenter is for churches, but when you first set it up, it asks if you're a church, and if you are not, Bible is hidden by default so that people can just pretend like it's just regular presentation software. So let's get back to editor, and then we'll go through some of these other things. Editor has been completely revamped. First off, the icons are gone. That's one of the things that I found confusing is I think there were 5 or 6 icons at the tabs here, and I could never remember what did what. So this is the presentation tab. You'll see that you can easily get to the copyright information. I could do, if I can type, Charles Leslie here. But, you know, I'm not going to display copyrighted information because he's been dead and with Jesus for a whole long time. So I can format it for different screen sizes. That's something else we'll talk about here in just a minute if we have time. Or I could format it for a custom size, which you might use if your side screens are a different size or resolution than your center screen. Some people like that for if they've got 2 vertical side screens and 1 horizontal center screen, for example. Slide, you can enable or disable the slide. Hotkey, you can put a letter of the alphabet in there, and if you type that letter while you're in show mode, unless you're in quick edit mode, it will take you directly to that slide. Label, you can change the label, you can put a background on it, whatever color. By default, I leave that off, and I'll show you why here in just a second. Add a chord chart. And if you wanted to build the pieces at different times, you could do the lyric at a different time from the, say, this, etc. So these element transitions are still available. This is something new down here. Slide notes was like a little bitty box, but I did a webinar, and if you were on that webinar earlier, let's see if I can find it real quick. 2020 webinar. So now let me Control S. Oops, Control E is what I wanted for editor. So you'll notice I have a lot of notes here because I put a lot of notes in my stage display layout. Yes, I used Pro 7 for a live webinar before it was announced. I, of course, didn't show this side. I only showed the live screen. So people saw that, and they just probably assumed I was using ProPresenter or PowerPoint or Keynote, one of those. ProPresenter 6, I mean. So Amanda, I am hoping that you will be able to watch it. That's my plan unless there's a glitch, but it looks like I'll probably have to do this again because I had quite a lot of people sign up. So if there's a glitch, I'll probably be able to do it. So yes, Control E does toggle to get in and out of editor. So the first letter of these, at least on the Mac, so SERB is what toggles between those. So Control S takes me to show, Control E takes me to edit, Control R takes me to reflow, and I think you were saying, Justin, that Control E is a toggle. Let's see if all of them, yes, they're all a toggle, it looks like. So Control B also takes me to Bible. Back to editor. So if I wanted to add more stuff in here, I could do that just by clicking here. So it doesn't have all the icons at the top, just says plus for adding new thing. Add a new text box I could do, add a new shape. Notice there are new shapes as well. Add media, whether it's stills or video files. You can add those here to the slides layer. Remember, a slide layer, it's only up as long as that slide is up. So you wouldn't generally want to put a video there. But there are situations where you might, like if you're overlaying a video with transparency, a ProRes 4444 video would be an example. You could put that there or put it on the props layer if you wanted. Video input if you wanted to put a video on a particular slide, and web if you wanted a web page. Keeping in mind that the web page in ProPresenter is somewhat limited. So I haven't tested it with YouTube and other streaming videos, whether live streaming or on-demand streaming, but I suspect that it will be problematic. So that's that. Over here, you can see that I have everything that is in my list. I can lock and unlock it. These are all the different things. So I locked the background so that I could move the rectangles where I wanted to. If I want to zoom in, I can zoom in. Let's say I want to make this 100% just to see all the details, but then I want to zoom to fit. That is Command 0, which is, as I say, the only keyboard shortcut I know right now that does different things based on where you are. In the show dialog, the show mode, it says, hey, display this only on the stage display, or turn that off. And in this, it zooms. So that's the only difference. You can absolutely do a Command plus. You should be able to. That might have changed, but so you can zoom in or zoom out. Here, and you'll notice that this editor, if I go back to show here, the editor, it doesn't say that anymore. So back on editor, view moves over, and so does screens, and editor pops in, and that gives you some additional functionality. So I still have the ability to select different ones, still have the ability to actually show them on screen, but that's way down here. I can also hide slide notes, like if I never use those, I could hide that. This shows the checkerboard background. Checkerboard background indicates transparency. So if I go into this one and click on that, you can now see that this is a text box, this is a picture of me, and then this is a transparent background. So that's good as well. And theme is the new name for templates. So these are all templates that I brought in from Pro 6. But basically they operate the same. Seems like there's a change. I'm blanking on what that is right now. Text, I could do some text formatting. So that's moved up here. Search, I can do a search in the library or in Song Select, but not both at the same time. So more allows me to go to the stage editor, the theme editor, again, template editor is what it used to be called, CCLI editor, props editor, mask editor. Timers takes you to timers, messages takes you to messages, to display a message or a timer or countdown. Props and stage does this, where you can show a stage display only message, and you can change what layout is on each stage display. You can also hide the media bin right there, and this is where you can get more media from Renewed Vision approved vendors. Reflow editor is very similar to how you've seen it before, where you've got the text over here on the left and the slides on the right. So you do want to move that up if you click to a different slide. Insert line break is the same thing as option enter. So if I wanted to add a slide break, I can do option enter, and that gives me a new slide based on the previous one. But if I notice like this, that doesn't do what I want it to do, I can absolutely hit delete on a Mac keyboard or backspace on a Windows keyboard. All that's the same kind of stuff as well. Bible has an additional feature, and this is one people have been clamoring for, where this is just the way that it is. So I could do, let's see, let's do my funny live verse, Acts 26, 24, found when I was a freshman in college. So I can add that. Let's actually look. Oh, I didn't actually change the verse. So I can zoom in on that, and you can see that it said, and when he made his answer in these words, Festus said in a loud voice, and this is the part, Paul, you are out of your head. Your great learning has made you unbalanced. That's the Bible in Basic English version of that. So that was after I told my campus pastor that I'd been studying so much that I was feeling like I was insane. So he said, oh, there's a verse like that. But if in addition to one, I want a second one, I can click this. Now, this requires me to break on verse for this to work, and actually it makes sense that it would, because if you put multiple verses on a single slide, it gets really busy really fast. Unless it was like Jesus wept. But I want to say that the verse before that and after that are not nearly as short. So you do that, and now I can, if I had a theme that had multiple verse and reference text boxes, I could select another verse and another reference text box. So I have control over where each translation goes and the accompanying reference for that. And as I say, you probably would not want to do this with a lot of different translations, but I've got 4 of them added right now, and you'll notice that I can in fact add 4. I could probably add 5, but I only have 4 translations in ProPresenter 7 right now. Something I need to do. But that would be very busy unless you had perhaps a double wide edge blended display or maybe a triple wide edge blended display. So there's that. Let's go back to show. And oh, I didn't tell you actually how to add this. You can save this as a presentation, which is ProPresenter's word for each individual piece in a playlist. I wouldn't have called them presentations. I would have called them documents or something. Copy to the selected presentation. So in this case, it would have put it in the 2020 webinar, or save it to a playlist so I could choose what playlist I want to save it to. And then I can go verse by verse and repeat. Can change between the different transitions. Right now, this is on a cut. There's a dissolve, and this is the advanced transitions where I can choose between any of the transitions. Probably wipe a lot of people are going to use. Notice that it gives you a preview of it, and you do have some options if you were to choose it. So actually, let me do this. Let's do a wipe from left. Imagining that we're doing a Star Wars at the movie series, which is about the only time I could think to use a wipe, is if you were doing something like that. So that does give you a preview. It shows you the duration, etc. So that's some different choices you have there. So while we're talking about this, I do want to talk about search. So I believe that's Command, no, is it Command S? Where is that? Don't have all this stuff memorized yet. Search. Oh, find. Command F, as in find. So this is the way that I would tell people that in general you're going to want to build your playlist. In fact, this is a playlist I built in one of the tutorials in one of my courses by searching. So let's say that I want to find Amazing Grace. Clearly it's right there, but let's say that I want to find it. So I just start typing amazing and it shows up here. But notice that I have these 2 icons. This searches my libraries, all of them, because I've got the default, the hymns, the test library, etc. So it searches all of them for this. And this searches Song Select. But I'm not logged into Song Select. So back to Command F for find. So doing that, effectively, ProPresenter 7 has done what I recommended that should, over time, fix the song select problem that ProPresenter 6, every single search also searches song select, which overwhelms their servers. And quite frankly, most of the time you don't want to search song select because you're using the same song more than once in its lifetime. Maybe a song or 2 a week you want to search song select for, but it's rare that it's every last song you do unless you've just started. So that's why it fixes that. And you don't have to retype, by the way. So it's just a toggle between those two. So that does, in fact, fix that. And let's Command F to hide that, or I guess you just click elsewhere and it hides it. One thing that I didn't point out earlier, in ProPresenter 6 you could change libraries, but it was kind of a wholesale change. In ProPresenter 7, each library is kind of a method of organization. So if you have a contemporary service and you have a classic service, a traditional service, that's the word I wanted, and you have a children's service and you have a youth service, and at different times they use the same computer, you could have 4 different libraries. And let's say it's Youth Sunday, where you're going to do some of the same songs, but not all. You can switch between things. And let's say your contemporary service wants to do a jazzed up version of Amazing Grace, not the new version that has additional stuff, because adding additional stuff to it would mess it up. But you could go to the hymns library, for example. So you can do it that way. Playlists here, we have playlist folders and we have individual playlists. And when you click on anything, it shows up down here. So that's why I say that you should Command F to find, you should search, drag, and so on to create your playlist, and then get out of that for actually presenting. Because if you do it this way and search, then it gets a little ungainly. You can drag and drop to, let's say I can drag and drop into here, or I could if that wasn't a Planning Center playlist. But it's no guarantee it's going to put it in the right spot. So that will just save you a step because you can put it in the right spot. Now let's talk about screens. It used to be the way, I think they might have changed this a little bit from the default version. Yeah, they added this back in right here to show a couple of things and then give you an open screen configuration button. The tutorial I have right now was before they added that back in, so I'm probably going to have to redo it, which is a bummer because it's got several hundred views. But it used to be you did all your configuration here. But now we have this where I can configure screen, and that's Command Option 1 will take you there. That is a new keyboard shortcut, I believe. So that would be in the new keyboard shortcut thing. So you'll notice that I have 3 screens, which multi-screen module could do. But what multi-screen module could not do is do 3 screens that are different resolutions. Notice this is 1080p, this is 720p, and this is 1600 by 900. So 3 totally different ones, and they don't have to be physical screens. They can be SDI using, like, the Blackmagic Mini monitor is an example. They could be alpha key with, for example, the Blackmagic Ultra Studio 4K or the Blackmagic Ultra Studio HD Mini. You could do alpha channel. Or they could be NDI, where you send it over the network, or Siphon, where you send it in the same computer from ProPresenter to something else. Maybe you've got OBS running on the same computer, which may or may not be a good idea depending on the computer, but you could do that. So you could have, in my tutorial, I showed 4 of each type of screen. And yesterday in the keynote, they used a DeckLink Duo 2 card, which has 4 SDI outputs. That was in a Sonnet enclosure to do that. So I believe you could at least theoretically do 2 of those, both Thunderbolt in Thunderbolt enclosures on a Mac, and get 8 outputs. So you could have 4 SDI outputs going to wherever they need to go, and then for the main screen, and then 4 discrete stage displays going wherever they need to go. You can now do that with SDI or with HDMI, VGA, DVI, etc. If your computer can see it, you can use it. Or it could be NDI, so you could send that over the network. You could theoretically also connect it to an Apple TV, although my experience has been that that's been less reliable. We tried to do that, and every once in a while we'd see the Apple TV screen. So on a dedicated network, I could think of a reason why you would do that. This identifies the screens and tells you which one is which. You can also call that, let's say, lobby. If that's what you wanted to use that for. And stage display, you could say this is the one above tech booth. This is the one on the front row, for example. So, Sean, I'm planning on getting the video uploaded later, so we'll see about that and go from there. I'll answer some of the other questions here in just a second. So it is 12:45. I want to honor your time, but let me real quick show you. This is the button that says for the hardware connections, and you'll see that I can do new siphon connections. I can do an NDI. If I had SDI hardware connected, which apparently I need to get SDI hardware so that I can show you how to use it now, then I could do that. And I can also do a placeholder. This is really valuable if you're making them at home. You can create a screen that's not an actual screen. It's just a placeholder for the screen in the resolution you need it to be. So let's say that this computer has never touched a 4K display. I could still create a placeholder screen that is a 4K display. So when I add this here, I can do it there. Output target. If I want this output to go to one and only one screen, I could output it to the full screen. That's the default. But what if I wanted to do a double screen, like the dual head to go, which is still supported? The Matrox dual head to go, triple head to go will still work. The DataPath X4, although not technically on the list that they support, will work as well. And I could do a 2x1, a 2x2, where I'm saying, okay, this screen is this one, then another screen is this one, another screen is this one, another screen is this one. Or with the DataPath X4, I can indicate which is which. I need to fire up my dual head to go and do that a little bit later. So I have a lot of different options. If I go to full up here and click here, I also could have this mirrored to two different screens or grouped together like this, where they're just right next to each other, or edge blended if I'm using two projectors. So I've got a lot of different capabilities. I can change the number of devices. Let's say I want to edge blend 4 screens, make a big old wide thing. I can do that. So I have a lot more power than I did in ProPresenter 6, which is part of what I'm excited about. I'm also excited that before I couldn't personally justify getting the Alpha Keyer module, pay an extra $1,000 for Alpha Key. Also another $500 to $1,000 for the hardware. Now it seems more possible. So I'll go ahead and I'll answer these questions here in just a second. Let me show you one other thing before I answer those, though, and I'll be right back with those here in just a second. I wanted to show you that this is some of the courses that are available in my Church Tech U program. So I have ProPresenter, a few ProPresenter 5 courses. I think both the operators and the creation course are Pro 5. I've got everything under the sun for Pro 6. So I've got one for pastors, which if you're a frustrated tech person whose pastor refuses to not use PowerPoint, that might be a good way to do it. I've got a hacks one if you want to take your ProPresenter abilities to a level that maybe Renewed Vision didn't anticipate, but it could still do. Hardware, some of my recommendations. But if you scroll down here, you'll notice I've added a couple more. So I have the ProPresenter 7 creation course, which showed up yesterday out of the blue, right after a certain keynote. How'd that happen? And I have the ProPresenter 7 online course. And what you've been in is like the first segment of the ProPresenter 7 online course. The ProPresenter 6 one has been very popular with my Church Tech U people because it gives them accountability to show up at a class. I rotate between a couple of times so that everyone all over the world can get to those, usually this time and a nighttime time. And then I upload the replays later. So I'm going to do that same thing with ProPresenter 7. There is another company online that is doing live training online for $450 per person. And now I'm doing live training online for less than that per church. So something else to keep in mind. This is, of course, this is the ProPresenter 7 creation course. There's more coming, by the way. This is just the first module. So you'll see that I have about 30 minutes worth of content, but it's in bite-sized pieces. So you don't have to devote an hour like you did today to this. You can just pop in whenever you want to. The first presentation lecture is me showing you how to add stuff, working with text, working with video, slide loops, and calendar, which was formerly called scheduler. You can see there's a lot here, so it's going to take more than an hour for you to learn everything there is about ProPresenter 7. And you could knock around, do it yourself, or you can let me help you and let me help you train the people at your church. So here are a couple of the other courses. This is the live online one, which is about to start here next week. And this is the ProPresenter 6 operators course. I'm going to remake this from the ground up for ProPresenter 7 for any changes that are made and with the new UI. Also included in this is a private Facebook group. So I love the ProPresenter users group. I founded it. It's now got about 12,100 some odd members, maybe 200 by the end of today, maybe 300, who knows. I've added a lot, but sometimes we get a lot of bad information when someone asks a question. So this is a much smaller community that can do all that. And I wanted to show you, this is the sales page where you can get all that free for the first month. So if you need just this month to get up to speed on ProPresenter, I said free, I meant $1 if you go with the monthly version, which is only 35 bucks a month afterwards. Now that's less than you'd pay someone to run ProPresenter for a couple of hours. Wanted to make sure that my camera didn't just get unplugged. It didn't. Okay. Yearly is $347, where basically you get 2 months for free. Actually 3 months, because it doesn't charge you for the first month. So the first month is free. And the multi-site, if you're a larger church, if you've got 2 or more congregations, it's actually, or 2 or more sites, it's actually cheaper than just buying the yearly twice. So those are some of your different options. I'll go ahead and paste that link into the chat in case you're interested, and let me answer the questions that people have added. If you have a question that you put into the chat, if you could put that in the Q&A just so that I don't miss it, and we'll go from there. So Suzanne asked, is there a way in this version to resize the stage display timer of the PCO Live? Ours is a fixed box. Also, does this version allow us to display, say, lyrics on the side screen and a lyric and background video on the center? It depends on what is behind the lyrics on the side. If you had a lyric and background video on the center, that would work. But if you also wanted a video underneath the lyrics on the side, there is still only one media layer. So the lyric video would take the place of the lyrics on the side. One way to deal with this is you could put the lyric video in the props layer and only show the props layer on your center screen, and then show lyrics from the slides layer, and the media layer show the background video. So I guess that would work. So Oliver asked, does Pro 7 have native touch bar support, or do we have to use a third-party app to map keyboard shortcuts as in Pro 6? So Better Touch Tool is still something that I've heard people using. My MacBook Pro, although it's the same age, it's a 2017, same age as the touch bar, I cheaped out and I really am kicking myself. So I don't know that. I'll have to see if I can find it out. Let me actually make a note to myself there. That is Oliver Bar Pro 7. So that's all I know about that. Again, even though I've had this for a little bit of time, it's still kind of new stuff, at least to me. So some of these things I don't know, because sometimes you don't think to ask the question until someone figures it out. or they ask it for you. So can the Bible still pop out? Let's see here. So that shows me those options. This will probably show me my Bibles. Which, by the way, that also tells you why the reference wasn't showing up, because I had that disabled. Yep, that shows me. And again, this is a beta one, so I really want to update it, but I didn't want to update it right before this. So I don't believe that it will pop out. I think that it's modal and modal only. So let's go to view, Bibles. Yep. So no. Oh, that's another thing that's different is cues are now called actions. So keep that in mind as well. So I don't believe it allows you to pop that out. Ken asks, how would I use this to connect remote TVs in other places on campus? For example, I want to pipe the sermon video audio to a TV for our safety team. So if I could, I would run a cable. The next part of your question, how would I do that without running the cable? I think what I would do is I would, on the far end, I would have something that could take NDI and do it that way, because while you could theoretically do it with an Apple TV, and that may be a way to do it, is buy an Apple TV, see how reliable that is as an additional device, because Mac OS can do that, assuming you're using a Mac. And if not, there is, Cody was saying the other day, yesterday I think, that there is an NDI app, which I need to get, that allows you to receive with NDI with the Apple TV. So that's probably the ways that I'd start, at least right now. Again, still early days. Can we do different outputs to each screen? Yes, it is just like the multi-screen module. So actually, let me click over here in screens, configure, no, it is edit looks. Looks is the different stuff. So I'm glad you asked. So just like the multi-screen module with ProPresenter 6, I only have 3 of these. I could do 4, 5, however many are connected, either virtually or in real life. I can change this. So lobby TV, you'll notice I have, well, what I should have done, this explains why it wasn't doing what I wanted to do earlier. The announcements layer I would put on the lobby TV. And I can do different, they used to be called templates, views, themes. I can do different themes on each one. I can show or not show the slides layer, the media layer, the video input layer. I almost never use that, so I would probably leave that out. And I can create all these different presets for different looks, and I can call them whatever I want to. And I can add an action to a slide to switch between those. So I have a lot of power. One thing that we discovered in beta testing is there is no way to completely disable one output. So like if you had something behind ProPresenter and you want to just disable the ProPresenter output for only one output, but leave the other one up, right now they don't do that, but we've suggested it in the beta group. So that could be something that's coming, I don't know. So have I used the Windows version? No, I have seen the Windows version. Cody who's, of course, one of the main people that interacts on the ProPresenter users group, who works for Renewed Vision, is a Windows guy. And when he first told me the ProPresenter 7 existed, he said, right now, the Windows version is faster than the Mac version. So he's really excited because he came to Renewed Vision under the cloud of ProPresenter doesn't work for the PC. That's what people were saying. I disagree that it doesn't work at all, but anyway. So I haven't actually used it, but I've seen it and it looks great. A video feed from cameras, I have not yet tested that. That's on my to test list, but it's my assumption and understanding that there's going to be 3 frames of latency, which is just enough where some people notice. Now, will your pastor and decision makers notice? Maybe. Will they not notice? Maybe. So in general, I try not to tell people to do that, but if your security team is in another room that's not acoustically connected, or with 3 frames, maybe it won't be that much of a big deal, then you might be okay with it. James, do we have Stream Deck integration still working? Guess what? One of the people in the beta group is one of the people that was working on the Stream Deck stuff. So if it's not working now, it will be very, very soon, because he was working on it at least a couple of weeks ago. Jordan says support for Stream Deck, is that check as in someone you've checked it, or you were asking if it was checked? Either way, I've told you what I know, but if it works, absolutely. You could raise your hand to indicate that it works if you know for sure. Ken says absolutely using Mac, and that's fine. So last night I watched my top, I want to say it was 7 requests for ProPresenter 7 before I knew there was a ProPresenter 7, although I suspected it. So before I had any information, and I got 2 of them. One of them they added at the end of ProPresenter 6. If you had the Alpha Keyer module, you could also send NDI at the same time. But that is in ProPresenter 7. The second thing that I added, that I wanted added, was parity between Pro 6 Windows and Pro 6 Mac. I will probably always use a Mac, but I wanted parity, and it looks like we've got that, including with the MIDI module, which makes me happy that I don't have to. Right after Pro 6 came out, I thought that they were all in there, and I was wrong, but someone who was Windows was like, why doesn't this work? Because it's not there. So there you go. So support for Stream Deck natively, yes. What was the SDI card casing that was mentioned for the deck link that was used during the keynote? It was a Sonnet case. SONNET is the manufacturer. They also make, and I think I'm having a problem with my Thunderbolt connection, but they also make this one. So this is a single Thunderbolt to dual HDMI out. So if you have a if you need to consolidate Thunderbolt ports, it's a Thunderbolt 3 by the way, then that can work. And one of the Renewed Vision guys was saying that he uses it every day. So that's why I bought one, only to find out that it doesn't like my computer. but my second Thunderbolt port is a little iffy. So, can you install Pro 7 on your computer? This is Sean's question, to get it set up, but still use Pro 6 for your services until you're ready to switch? Absolutely. In fact, I have Pro 7, and if we look down here at my dock, you'll notice I have Pro 6. They're right next to each other. You can tell that this is the beta because it just says ProPresenter. So I need to update that. But yeah, you can absolutely do them. And Pro 5 and Pro 6 was the same way. They're different pieces of software. So in fact, this is what I would recommend to people is if you if you're getting ready to switch over, I would build in Pro 6 and then export it and do it in rehearsal in Pro 7. Make sure there are no gotchas because the big ones are gone. It's the little, oh, we do things a little bit differently ones that are going to start showing up. So there you go. Christy asks, you may have said this, is Pro 7 ready to go? Does this mean we can update our Macs now? Most of the bugs are gone. Most of the ones that they found in the beta group in the last couple of days were like theme being called template in one of the submenus, or screens being called displays in one of the submenus. So it's all pretty similar, pretty simple things that don't really affect how it works. But there might be something in your particular situation that someone hasn't tested out that could cause that to be a problem. So I have used it. I have used it on webinars. I'm going to use it at a conference that I'm leaving for today in Ohio, the Worship 424 conference. Google that if you're curious. I'm not presenting, I'm a vendor, but you can do that as well. So, I don't know, it's really up to you. Okay, do you have to load your media into P7? That's a new shortcut. Pro 7, if you have Pro 6 on the same Mac. So when you start Pro 7, it will say, hey, do you want to import stuff from Pro 6? You say yes, it does it, you're done. It's not that it necessarily makes copies of it, although it could, but yeah, depending on if you have it set to do that automatically. Okay, James is asking, how did they do the multi-screen visualization from Keynote? Make a tutorial? Well, do you mean on the right-hand side? Here is what I would suspect. I'd suspect that that is either a display turned on its side, and that's and they did that with sorry, I want to go into preferences, configure screens. So if we do custom, I think you can do it that way. By the way, there's color pinning. Or if we did grouped and did four rows and one column. Think they could have done it that way. So that is what I suspect, at least. One of those ways. So let me take that back to single so I'm not confused later when I do a tutorial. And Jordan, is a new keyboard overlay coming soon? Define soon. Not in January, not in February, probably. As early as March, maybe, if there's enough demand for it. As it turns out, because the supplier that made these refused to take my money and make these, I just got these in, and I've still lost like in the $300 range on them. So I've got some to sell, and as I say, most of the differences are new things. There are 4 things that have been relabeled, and is it 4 things or is it 6 things? A few things that have been relabeled, and I think 4 that are actually different. So that's it. So it's not super, you can't use it at all with Pro 7, but there are a couple little things. Okay, something new on transitions, thanks. There are new transitions, absolutely. And those transitions, let's go back into show. So something I didn't show you is there is a slideshow feature right here where I can click on that and add any number of seconds, and no matter what's in there, it will show it for that many seconds, and the last one will loop back to the first one. And every time that you add a new slide, it will update that, so you don't need to change timing. If you need different times on each one, then you want a different go to next timer. If you want foreground videos, you want to use different go to next timers, because if you leave these up for 7 seconds, the last frame of the video will stay up for 7 seconds. So there's that. Now, going into transitions, let's look at these favorite transitions. I've got wipe, I've got amoeba. Some of you might have, there was actually a discussion where someone said, that looks like the amoeba transition. Yeah, there's color burn, color push, color wrap, crosshatch, 3D cube spin, my nemesis, cut, dispersion, blur. I think that most of those you're not going to want to use very often, but they exist. Is there a contiguous mode toggle? If there is, I haven't found it. So I think it's just basically there. Also, there's the new for our old eyes feature. No, it's this one. Yep. So that is there. That is called Easy View to help us with old eyes. I used to have 2015 in one eye and 2020 in the other. When I was 29, I went to the eye doctor, had a test, and I'm like, oh, I can clearly see better out of this side than the other eye. I guess I need glasses. No, the other eye was 2020. So I had better than perfect vision. But you'll notice I'm wearing glasses now. because I'm 46, and that's what happens. They're actually bifocals. So as I say, I haven't found the contiguous mode toggle, so I'm not sure that it's there. And I'm not sure that you need it, because, you know, for your preference sake, maybe you do, but it's all contiguous mode, and I think they got rid of some of the little lag with that. Ken says edge blending looks much better in Pro 7. Cool. Thanks for your time, Paul. You're welcome, Pern. Thanks. You're welcome, Brian. I have to get back to work. Thanks for doing this. You're welcome. It was grouped mode, James says. So. Not really a question, but notice the platform looks a lot like Final Cut. Yeah, I think that there's a piece of that. They've taken inspiration from a lot of Apple stuff for sure. I would guess that since Brad Weston is clearly an Apple guy. I mean, he wrote the first 3 versions of ProPresenter on a Mac. I just see a lot of inspiration from Apple in it, so it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I do use Final Cut, but I hadn't made that connection until you pointed it out, Rick. So there we go. You're welcome so much, Amanda. So if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to ask them in the ProPresenter users group. I have gotten so little done since Pro 7 was announced because I'm adding new people all the time, or I'm answering questions, or this morning I woke up to find that Church Motion Graphics was having an unofficial Pro 7 Q&A that I chimed in on, along with Brad Zimmerman, who did the official tutorials. I'm doing the unofficial ones, and I'm okay with that, because Brad has another job. Me getting into the nitty-gritty and finding every last thing I can and how to make stuff work that maybe they didn't intend to work, that's my job. So I'm doing that. I don't think I've been Sherlocked too much. So there we go. First-time viewer, thank you so much for doing this, Paul. Look forward to learning from you and others in the Pro 7 community. Happy to help. I would like AlphaMap transitions. Make sure you make a request, because keep in mind, I don't work for Renewed Vision. I'm just like you, only I've been doing it longer than most people. That's really the difference. And I eat, live, and breathe ProPresenter and other church tech stuff. So. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I'll go ahead and stop the broadcast. I have really enjoyed it. It's always fun to do these live, and it's always fun to interact with you. So thanks for making it possible, and I really hope that some of you will consider going into my my community, where I'll train your entire church, everyone that's interested, for one low monthly price, starting with $1 or less a month for the first month, and not much more thereafter. So if that's something that interests you, make sure that you take advantage of the link that I just pasted in chat. Okay, until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford from TrinityDigitalMedia.com and ChurchTechU.com, reminding you to go out and change eternity.